They're full of dead men's bones and all things unclean. You really got to clean the inside of the dish and then deal with the outside. When you go into church, you got to be very careful about who you follow. You got to be careful how you follow people. I would really like to think that nobody follows me blindly, even as a pastor. I'd like to think nobody follows my deacons blindly, even though they're deacons. Or my youth group leaders, even because they're youth group leaders. I hope and pray you're not following anybody blindly. I'll clarify that. The reality is that I sin. I fall short of God's glory. I do things I should not do. I don't want to, but I do them. If you follow everything I do, you're going to sin too. And the worst part is I thought you had to do it. I really don't like that idea. I don't like that at all. You are to follow your leaders that have been put in positions in the church. Absolutely. But always test what they say in the Scriptures. Make sure they're on track. If they're not, come up to them with gentleness, humility, hope, realizing you've got a whole scad of sins in your own life, and tell them this part of what you're saying just isn't from God. It's just not there. The reality is we do follow a lot of people in the church that we shouldn't. There are some people in the church, that aren't saved. There are some people in every church that don't know God at all. We definitely don't want to follow them or mimic some of their behaviors, which won't be healthy. The only one we can really follow, I think, is Jesus. It's the only one I would have you follow as a pastor anyway. It's Jesus. He's perfect. He has no sin whatsoever. It says here that Jesus Christ suffered for you to give you an example. You are to walk into his footsteps. No deceit was found in his mouth in the first place. If anyone hears God's word, you should obey it. Live by it. That's who we should follow. I can think of no better example. You have people outside the church all the time that look inside the church and they say, you know what hypocrites they are in church. They have God's holy word, but they don't follow it. They have God's holy word, but every time I see them out there, they're doing things they ought not to do. What a bunch of hypocrites. Did you see what that deacon did the other day? Did you see how he talked bad to somebody? Did you see what the pastor said? What hypocrites they are. You know what? If you point them to Jesus, you're never going to hear the word hypocrite again. Because Jesus has no sin. Nobody can look at Jesus. Not even the Pharisees, who knew the laws, inside, backwards, and sideways, could ever find a single sin in Jesus. You point people outside, out in the world, towards Jesus, and you're going to find that that's the best example we could ever have to follow. Getting more like Jesus is really like taking baby steps. It says, but when he, the Spirit of truth, comes, he'll guide you in all truth. He will show you what the truth is. He will also bring you out of the horrible pit that you are in, your own fears, your own sins. He will lift you up out of that pit and establish your steps. You can't go out tomorrow. It'd be nice if you could. Some people have done it, but very, very few. You can't go out tomorrow and become like a monk. You can't go out tomorrow and become like the deacon who might have spent the last 20 years becoming more like God. You can't go out and just change everything in one foul swoop and everybody see Jesus. It takes time. I believe that's why we get a lifetime. You know that? We get from anywhere from 0 to 80, 90 years to live on this earth. I think that's why God gave us that lifetime. We want to prepare for eternity. We see dimly now, we'll see clearly later. But you know what? I think that God gives us all that time so we might learn about Him, know about Him, imitate Him, and become more like Him. We need that time because we don't become like Him overnight. The reality is we've got to take baby steps. That might mean something very simple for you. Like spend 5 minutes reading God's Word every day. 5 minutes. That's it. Maybe that's your baby step. Nothing wrong with that. Heaven forbid you spend an entire year or a lifetime in church and never take a step. A lot of people do. A lot of people look back over their lives when they're 80 years old and say, there was 20, 30, 40 years of my life that I did nothing for God and I never grew. Shame on you. Because you're going to look back on it. And you're going to say, I wasted my life. You got to take little steps. God doesn't ask for big ones. He asks for little ones. He asks you to just take a tiny one. That might mean something so simple as a kind word to somebody. That might mean that you spend time with somebody who has no friends. That might mean that you stand up for other people who are Christians. It just might simply mean you pray 5 minutes a day. Take your little steps. You know what? That's how Paul did it. Paul didn't start out a good Christian. Paul started out persecuting the church. But Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus. And I tell you, after that, he started taking some big steps. Really big ones. But he did take them one by one he took his steps. And that's why he said, I'm running a race. Paul didn't say, I took this giant leapfrog and now I'm sanctified by God on the road to Damascus. I'm now perfect. I don't need to do anything else. Paul didn't say that. Paul said, I'm running a race. And it's taking one step at a time to know God. One step of faithfulness. God's going to be the Lord of our lives. Right now, for a lot of people, he's not. Culture is. What people say out there tell us what to do. And often we're so scared to go against the culture that's out there, we don't even stop to think about God. People are out there, they can do a lot of things to you. Absolutely. They can poke fun at you. They can make your life difficult. They can gossip about you. They can do a lot of different things to you. You know what? We should fear God more. God's the one who determines our eternal destiny, not us. We should fear God far more. We should stop being scared of the culture and start embracing God's love and take the little steps. He'll help you every step of the way. He says, I'll never leave you. I'll never forsake you. I will help you get to where you need to go. But, he says, you've got to be faithful. Take the steps each day. Little steps. Don't try to take big ones. That's how people fall. Take little ones with God's help. And you'll be surprised after the years, the decades, and a lifetime, where you are when you get ready to meet God in glory. You'll be surprised how far you've come. I've seen some people here take some steps. And I'm not going to mention their names, but I have seen them take some steps. Baby steps. And I've seen them go from one person to another person in a very short period of time. And they're still taking those steps. God bless them. I pray they never stop taking those steps. I pray they keep growing in faith. Complacency is the number one reason why we don't grow. And complacency means, I just don't want to do anything for God. That's why we don't grow. And the other reason is fear of the culture that's out there. I'm not scared of that culture. I'm scared of my God when I go meet him and he says, I hold you accountable. What did you do with what I gave you? And I get an answer for that. We all do. We have to answer for what we've done with what we've been given. A lifetime of opportunities. A lifetime to take the little steps. And God's going to ask you about every single step. And all the ones that you didn't take because either you're too scared of the people out there or you just simply didn't want to. God's going to ask you to take those steps. This is communion today. And we're going to celebrate another reality. We break the bread and we have the cup for a reason. You don't have to take all your steps by